Hi, it's Lee with Simplify Adulting, and today we're going to talk about something I get a lot of, I hear a lot of comments on and have a lot of discussions on with 20-somethings, which is getting through the application process to get to an interview. And so we're going to talk about a couple of the challenges and things that you can try to improve your likelihood of getting into an interview. First thing I hear about is a lot about just getting anything but a standard response back. So I want to talk a little bit about your resume and the fact that they're going into these applicant tracking systems. And there's a few things that you can do to make sure that your resume is not getting hung up on a few, like technical things, I'll call them, which is first you want to use, and I like to use ChatGPT, but you want to use some type of tool like that where it can and ask it to make your resume ATS-friendly, applicant tracking system friendly. That way it'll take out weird formatting stuff that may kind of get it just kicked out just on formatting issues. It will make sure the fonts are okay and just get it structurally more sound for going into one of those applicant tracking systems. Second thing is, although you use AI to help with your resume, you shouldn't use AI to write your resume completely. I'm hearing more and more about employers choosing to not interview people when it looks like their resume was just generated straight out of AI. So I think AI is a great tool to help you catch typos. It can give you some ideas and suggestions, like how do you make something maybe sound more results focused, or if you're a little stuck, it can give you some suggestions. But when you use AI, what you want to do is use it as an input to help guide your output. You don't want to use it very often as just the output. And when you're submitting a resume, you want it to sound like you and feel like you. So use AI to generate ideas of how you could talk about a project, how you can shorten something, but then go back and make sure that it represents you. It's how you would say it, because I think that's how you get out of this catch of where they're like, okay, it's just an AI generated resume. It doesn't feel real. And then the last thing is a lot of job postings are requiring some type of AI experience. And you can say, well, I don't have that, but you can get it. You can get it by using AI. You can go out and practice and build GPTs. These are, free things that you can do. I've built GPTs. It's kind of cool just to try it and you explore, experiment. But if you build a GPT, I built one for, coming up with recipes and everything. So you can say that. So it could be something that stands out. Maybe it could be related to something that you enjoy doing hobby-wise, but get creative. And then the other thing I'm going to do is in the show notes, I will put a couple links to some different resources that are out there to get AI skills and training courses for free. Everywhere from OpenAI Academy and other companies are really trying to put out free content to educate people on AI. And if you complete one of those courses, put it on your resume, right? So you can start to build that skill and experience and get that represented on your resume, even though you maybe haven't formally had a job doing it or your employer didn't train you in it. You can self-educate in that place and represent it. So there's just some things around that I hear a lot of input on that's frustrating in the job search category. And the next thing I want to talk about is this idea of, and I don't like the word networking, because networking I think has a lot of negative connotations, and I've been to some formal networking events and I don't like it. So I don't want to use that word. I want you to think of reaching out and connecting with the people you know when you're doing a job search. And the reason is that, okay, at the end of the day, people hire people. And when people, and people want to help people for the most part, right? We all like, oh yeah, I want to be helpful to somebody. So when we start to think about, okay, I'm applying for a job, who are the people in my network, not networking, but in my group of people I know that might have some information that would be helpful for me or might be able to help me in that process. And so there's a few key ways that you can think about building out that ecosystem and leveraging some of the resources you have, knowing that you'd be willing to do the same for them. Okay, so when you hear networking, it's not about going and playing golf. It's about being connected with people in a way that you think of people that you know and you're like, hey, gosh, so and so would really like to know this, or I just read a book that I think someone would like, or I saw a movie, right? That's just that's the idea of building your network. And it is so important to do this when you're in your career, especially your early career, because as you build those connections, my gosh, they just build a really strong foundation for your future career opportunities. And I'm just going to tell you, I'm going to walk you through my job history very briefly, but to show you the power of this. And it's not about getting special treatment or having to go schmooze with people. This is just about um, being aware of the people that you know and how you can help one another. All right, so I would say, so I got my first, call it my job that I got out of college was actually, I was temping. So I worked for Kelly Services in Minnesota. I worked for Kelly Services. I was a temp. And then they had me come in and do some work in their office. And then soon after I graduated, I moved across the country to Utah. And I didn't know anybody. I didn't have anything, but I knew Kelly Services. So instead of not having a job, I asked, they said, we'll help you get set up. We'll give you very good referral and recommendations so that I could get placed in some good assignments. So I ended up going there. And then the manager of that office who sent me out on temp jobs said, I'd like you to come work in the office. So I went and temped in the office again. And then I ended up getting hired full time by Kelly Services. And then my manager, who was my manager, we had a client company that had a really difficult time. They couldn't fill a recruiter job. And my manager said, I think you should go apply for that job and I should tell them that they should interview you for that job. So then I go and I apply and I get that job. And then in that job, which I ended up being there total 6 years, great opportunity, I interviewed and we brought in somebody that ended up to be in a different part of the organization I was in. We worked really well together, did all kinds of stuff. He was technically, a level above me, got to know him. And then I eventually left to go to another company that I got from somebody else I knew. It was the right time for me to make a change. And then I went there and guess what? Didn't work, wasn't a good fit. I was not happy. So I started to look again. Well, meanwhile, this other person that I had interviewed and had worked with had gone to another company. And he had me start to interview for opportunities at that company, which eventually I landed at, but not before somebody else came in that I had worked for at that company and said, hey, I'm doing a startup. Come work for me over here. Went and did that. Unfortunately, 9/11 ended that startup. And then that other person came and said, well, I have another job for you. And I went and interviewed and I got it. And then I'm telling you, every job, it was knowing somebody that I worked with or that I knew. And it was that sphere where we could reciprocate. And they're going, I need somebody good for this job. She's good. I'm going to call her. It's just, that is what I want you to understand that networking is. I don't play golf. I didn't go schmooze. It's about keeping in touch and connection with people. And it's so valuable. And all those first really critical relationships that I made were early in my career, in my 20s, including my managers who I did temp work for. So all counts and it's all valuable when you make connections with people and you have that type of rapport and that trust built. So that's how I want you to think about your job search, is starting to say, who are these people that I know that may want to help me in this endeavor? And the way I would start out is, if you're applying for a job at a given company, go through your mind. First, start with family and friends. And ask people, hey, do you work for this company, or do you know anyone who works for this company? Because I applied for a position. I'd love to talk to somebody who's knows more about the company, right? Maybe somebody does, or maybe they know somebody. And if they do, you can simply say, if they work for the company, you can say, hey, would you be willing to give me some information? How do you like it? What do you think about it? And then also, like, would you be willing to submit my resume internally? I've applied online, but I would, if there's an opportunity for you to do that. And a lot of companies really encourage referrals, and they encourage, they even pay for referrals, right? So it's kind of like, yeah, I can do that. Most people will do that. And then if it's your family or friends that know somebody, you ask for an introduction and saying, hey, I would love to work at the company you're working at. Do you mind giving me some input? And then once you talk to them, ask them some questions. What do they like about the company? What do they not? What department are they in? What type of work do they do? How long have they worked there? Blah, blah, blah. Say, well, I'm interviewing. Would you mind if there's an internal way to submit my resume? Would you be willing to do that? They say yes, awesome. If they say, oh no, there's not really a way for me to do that, great. Thank you so much. And it was just so helpful to hear everything you had to say about the company. It's really helpful. No harm, no foul. And then another way you can go at it is, a lot of times, and this is why I really encourage you to keep in that connection mode with former colleagues, because a lot of times our colleagues become former colleagues because they leave and go someplace else. And what you want to be able to do is, if you have a colleague at a company that you're interested in, a former colleague, to reach out to them and say, hey, I hope things are going well. I wanted to let you know that I think I'm going to apply for this job, or I just applied for this job. Do you mind talking to me about how you like the company? And do kind of the same discussion with them, catch up, and then ask them as well, is there any way that you would be willing to submit my resume internally? And it's this type of networking that's why I don't like the term. It's just keeping these connections and these relationships, because it's not about being schmoozy or like, hey, I'll take you out for drinks, or let's go hit some golf balls. It doesn't have to be like that. It just has to be that you're saying, hey, we had something in common. We have something in common. And do you mind helping me out? And then you reciprocate that when people ask the same thing of you. And that's how you start to build this ecosystem, because at the end of the day, people hire people. And the best way to get to that point is ideally to have other people either recommend you, or even if they say, hey, I haven't worked with this person, but I really like them, they reached out, I wanted to share their resume because they're interested. Like, it's as simple as that. And you'll hear you'll hear different crazy numbers out there. And I'm not saying you'll never not get hired by just applying directly. That is not the case. You can certainly have your resume come through and shine through in submitting it. But it doesn't hurt to start to build this practice so that you can start to build that ecosystem of support. And the way I say it is, a network should really be about staying connected with the people that you like. And it doesn't have to be like deep, meaningful friendship, just people that you resonate with, that you kind of like, and that you're willing to help them, and you think that they'd be willing to help you. That's your network. That's it. And you can build that network in just your daily interactions. So again, when you think about getting through to the interview, I want you to, there's the process in the system, and yes, you have to do that. But if you can start to augment it with these connection points and kind of looking through the people you know and say, hey, there's a common point here, and reaching out. And I'm telling you, it may not work for every job, but that habit and that ability to create that network will just serve you so well and in so many ways. And sometimes as you go down the road, it's not even for a job. You just happen to know somebody's an expert in something, and at your current job, you're being asked to do a project in that space. So having somebody could call and say, hey, I know that you've got this financial background. Do you mind just talking to me for a few minutes about a project I'm working on? Whatever it is. So it's not always just about the job. It's about finding the people that you want to support and that will also want to support you. So there you go. Some things about AI to think about in terms of your resume. And then don't get afraid of the networking thing. Just keep it really real and simple and honest, and just take advantage of the people you've made, the connections you have, and so that you can return the favor down the road. So there you go. If you like this video, please hit the thumbs up, and please comments, questions, anything down there. And don't forget to check out the show notes for the free AI learning resources. Until I see you again, stay happy and healthy.